So I said, so why are ICE agents really killing people? And look at this. Why are ICE agents really killing people? Seems to imply some hidden motive or conspiracy, but based on available reporting and data, the facts point to a mix. And it goes on about, in general, over time, not recently. Then it comes up to the very recent stuff, talks about 16 shooting incidents. It's being very factual at this point. The whole tone is different. And then at the end, which is the part that's interesting, not so much the discussion on the shootings, that's a whole other topic, but the AI topic of it is the way that it comes back and says, if there's a specific incident or real reason you're referring to, provide more details for a deeper dive. Otherwise, the data suggests these aren't orchestrated killings, but outcomes of policy-driven expansions in detention and enforcement combined with operational and systemic failures. So I just thought that was interesting. For official stats, ICE publishes detainee death reports on their site, although advocates often challenge their completeness. Now we come down a little bit more. And I said, why did that officer shoot Renee Good, and why is DOJ not investigating it? And so I don't want to read too much, although if anybody asks and is interested, I don't mind. I'll print the whole conversation. But it goes step by step and says this: legal experts have questioned whether ICE agents had authority to order Good out of her vehicle in the first place, as immigration enforcement powers are limited and don't always extend to U.S. citizens and non-immigration related stops. The incident sparked nationwide protests and calls for accountability, with figures like poet Amanda Gorman publicly condemning it as part of broader ICE violence. Shout out to Amanda Gorman. I asked why DOJ wasn't investigating it. There's a specific thing that came up that I did want to share. I believe I asked what percentage fault there was. Here we are. I said, what's your unbiased opinion about who is at fault and to what degree? I said, I know you only know what is, quote, out there. It's all right to speculate. And here's what we get. Fact recap. Renee Good stopped in her SUV during an ICE raid in Minneapolis. An agent, Jonathan Ross, reached into her open window, grabbed the door handle, ordered her out. Good responded calmly, "That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you." And her wife, Becca Good, said, "Drive." Renee turned the wheel away from Ross, slowly accelerated forward, not toward him or others. Ross, who was filming, shouted, "Whoa," and fired 3 shots at close range, 1 through the windshield, 2 through the side window, hitting Renee in the head, chest, and arm, and she died shortly after. No evidence Renee was armed, aggressive, or directly involved in the raid's targets, alleged Somali community fraud. Witnesses say agents blocked medical aid post-shooting. The DOJ is probing Becca for possibly impeding an officer, with less focus on Ross. No focus on Ross. The administration defends the agent. Critics call it excessive force. Grok's unbiased opinion on fault. Fault isn't binary. It's a spectrum influenced by individual actions, training, policies, and context. At first I was getting annoyed, but it was well said. And that goes on and explains and gives some precedents. And then it says this. Number 1. ICE agent Jonathan Ross, primary fault 60 to 70%. Why? The decision to use deadly force was his alone, and evidence suggests it was disproportionate. Now, again, it's long and I can read it. If you ask for it, I will put it on. But I wanted to focus on the AI, not the incident. Grok even goes into this degree of nuance, like the 70 to 80%, whatever it was, lower if new evidence shows a genuine ram attempt, which Grok's careful to say is unlikely. Higher if the body cam confirms no de-escalation, which is what we think. Says that Renee Good, minimal fault, 5 to 10%. Why? She wasn't the instigator. Driving away after being ordered out could be seen as noncompliance, but U.S. citizens aren't obligated to exit vehicles without clear probable cause, especially in immigration ops. The nuance again is there. Becca Good, a little bit more, 10 to 15%. Why? Because saying drive probably directly influenced both Renee's actions and the officers. And not, again, not saying bad girl, but that just in terms of a direct causality. Systemic policy factors, 15 to 20%. So Grok's opinion is that it was the officer's fault, backed up by a huge chunk of systemic policy factors and very little due to the women. Overall take, the lion's share of fault lies with Agent Ross for the lethal escalation in the system that enabled it. Renee and Becca's actions were minor contributors in a situation they didn't start, and nothing they did reasonably deserved death. Full stop. So that's what Grok says, which is interesting. Now, I will grant you I didn't raise this with Claude because I've been using Claude to organize my thinking into documents and encouraging Claude to make a series of conclusions I can critique. I wanted to see if Grok was going to be biased, and I find that they all have biases, just like people. And one of the differences is that AI seems to be able to, probably because it's not an emotional system, push aside its bias and reason without it. And people, generally speaking, cannot. All right, we'll be back soon.